Welcome to the Life Turkey podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Life Junkies podcast, episode 26, NXT Takeover WarGames and Survivor Series review. In a world where Jose Mourinho is Tottenham Hotspur manager, and in a world where Pep Guardiola's Man City are playing park the bus football to grind out a 2-1 win against Chelsea, we are here, ready talk wrestling. So why I came with a football intro, I don't know. A few things I want to talk about in the intro. Chris obviously isn't here because he probably would have interrupted me to insult Chelsea during that bit. We couldn't quite make ourselves time up. He hasn't been able to record anything himself anyway, so you're stuck with just me. So the Chris fans, the screaming teenage Chris fans, will have to take a break on this episode and come back hopefully next week, because if he doesn't come on next week, then the podcast I'm planning won't work. Anyway, intro, we've got a lot to talk about. So, Jim Cornette first, before we get into, and we've got a whole 2 pay-per-views, and these episodes can take a long time, or whatever, but Jim Cornette resigning from the NWA. Now, I might get a little bit of stick for talking about this, but I think it's interesting, and it's an issue. So, for those that don't know, Jim Cornette was calling for NWA Power, the YouTube show they put up every week, the 1 hour YouTube show, and he was a colour commentator on there doing his Jim Cornette bit. But then he made a remark on one of the episodes that went up last week, which he was bigging up Trevor Murdoch, who he's a big fan of. I listened to his podcast, and he's a big fan of Trevor Murdoch, and he said Trevor Murdoch is so tough he could strap a bucket of fried chicken to his back and ride through Ethiopia. Now, he says, and I believe him on this point, he says that it wasn't racist, it wasn't a black joke, it was a starving joke, which isn't really better. But straight away people went for him and went at him and went at NWA, and they took it down and cut the audio a little bit and then posted it back up without the comment, which, by the way, this has gone through Cornette. Whoever's listening to it at the time, because there'll be someone producing him, he's got someone sat next to him. I haven't actually watched NWA Power yet. It's one of those ones where you go, I should get around to watching that, but then life exists, doesn't it? So it's got through them. It's then got through the editing stage and you upload, and people, if you're not me, and if you're a professional editor that knows what you're doing, you listen to the product that you're editing as you edit it, and it's got through all these people, and they're going, yeah, it's fine, blah, 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 boom, and it sounds like Jim Cornette has resigned, and he's just gone, you know what, I'm not enjoying this anymore, I'm done. And maybe it's a bit mutual on both sides. Maybe they're fed up because it's the second time there was issues with a comment he made regarding suicide. Again, I don't know what the comment was. He claims he didn't say anything, but it's all this sort of tricky. The thing to remember in all of this, and that I believe, is Jim is a liberal. So I don't think it was intentional. Jim is a man almost out of place with the way he acts and his version of speech. But he's not. You can listen to it from hearing him. He's not a racist man. He's a liberal. He has all these, he believes in equality and this and that, and while I'll disagree with him about women's wrestling, and I believe women's wrestling can be bigger than it is now and can rival men's if you give it the chance, he is still. But even so, the comments were that the joke was bad. It wasn't funny. Whether it's a racist joke or a starving joke, it's not that much better, really. Both are pretty bad, pretty grim jokes to make. So, well, there you go. That's my opinion on the Jim Cornette issue that you didn't want. I was going to talk a bit about AEW, but I really want to talk about Chris Sabat, so I'll probably leave that until the next wrestling podcast we do. So I'm going to take a quick break, and I will come back and talk about NXT Takeover WarGames.
This is a life-changing podcast.
So NXT Takeover WarGames. Wow, what a show! So we kick off with a women's WarGames match with Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai versus Shayna Baszler, Io Shirai, Bianca Belair and Kaylee Ray. So, really hot opener. You've got, before the match, you've got Mia Yim, who is knocked out. So Rhea Ripley asked Dakota Kai to join the team. Heels have the advantage anyway, because they've got first person in advantage. Then, so you've got who starts the match? Is it Belair that starts the match? Or Shirai? So it's, so Belair or Shirai starts, and then one of them comes in first. I can't remember which way around now. But so you've got, so one of them starts with Candice LeRae, then the other one comes in, then Ripley's in, and Kaylee Ray then comes down, teases weapons, but he gets in. Boom. So it's 3 against 2, and then it's time for Dakota Kai to come down. She comes out, then turns around and attacks Nox, which, from videos I've seen from inside the stadium, the crowd went mental for. There was massive heat on it. But she attacks Nox, she pulls off a knee brace because she's bashing the door and gets a knee. It was brutal. She then walks out, so they've lost both Kai and then Nox, because Nox got a fight. So Baszler, by the way, Baszler during all of this was perfect. She was laughing, she had the reactions brilliant, they were big so everyone could see them. While she's in a cage, she's still laughing when she walks down, acting the cat's got the cream. That brilliant sort of cocky heel of, well, we've won this because they've just imploded. 4 against 2, we can't lose. And then the rest of the match was a really well booked fighting from underneath style match with Ripley and Candice both getting, every now and then they get the upper hands and then they'd be sort of pushed back down again, and it was just brilliant. And the end came when Rhea Ripley gets the cable ties on Shayna Baszler. She cable ties her hands together. It's been a whole 3 or 4 days since I've watched this. Shocking. But she cable ties hands together and she puts her through a table and then gets the pin. 1, 2, 3, done. Rhea Ripley has looked really, really good as of late since she's come up to main NXT. I wasn't too impressed with her in the Mae Young Classic. She got a big push, and also obviously they were very hot on her, but I wasn't. She didn't really do anything that showed to me that she's a great talent. But honestly, since she's moved up and since she's been feuding with Baszler, she has looked every inch a star, and she's the one. She is the star on the roster. I think she's even outshining Baszler, which is what a face is supposed to do with a heel. They're meant to be the star, and the heel is that bad person you want to see beaten. So she's done brilliantly. Both of those two women are brilliant in the ring, amazing. And I've called this before, and I'm going to say it again. She will be the next NXT Women's Champion, and it will be sooner rather than later. Both me and Chris were wrong on that one. Shayna Baszler, Shirai, Belair, and Kaylee Ray all lost. So 0-0 for us. Moving on, we've got the number 1 contenders match for the NXT title. Pete Dunne versus Killian Dane versus Damian Priest. It was nice in the preview to hear Chris work his way around to my train of thought. Actually, I took his audio clips and I edited it in and didn't listen, so he could have been on there effing and jeffing and calling me every name under the sun. But I edited it all together and then put it out, and then when it was released, I then listened to it. Skip past my bits, of course, because who wants to hear itself? But it was nice to sort of listen to Chris in a proper way, like everyone else would. I say by everyone else, the 3 people that probably listens. It's quite a big claim for you. 3 whole people. I wish. Anyway, but it was nice for him to work his way around. He started, I think he was going for Killian Dane at the start, and then argued, played himself back around to Pete Dunne. Dunne makes sense, and Dunne, of course, won because he's got the most experience out of all of them. He's also probably got the best conditioning to do 2 big nights in a row. And I know doing 2 matches in a row isn't that big a thing in wrestling. Like the wrestlers, they tend to wrestle 5 nights a week, but it's it's completely different doing a pay-per-view match, doing a house show match. There's completely different levels that you've got to go to. So to do that big pay-per-view match 2 nights in a row, Pete Dunne's the go-to one. I thought it was a really decent match despite the limitations of obviously Dane and Priest. I don't think it was well served by being a triple threat match. I think you could have done going 2-1 against Priest. So they do 1-1, and then Dunne gets they go, oh, this is a match to qualify you for number one contenders match, and then Dunne wins that, and then Dane, or even go this number one contenders match on NXT, and then Dane comes out and attacks Dunne after Dunne's won that, and they go, well, you know, I'm going to put my number one contendership online against you, blah 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 blah. But it was triple threat, and it's still decent. There you go, Pete Dunne with a win. Both me and Chris predicted him. Although I feel Chris should only get half a point because he was going to go for Killian Dane in the start. Sure, go carry on. Matt Riddle versus Finn Balor, another really good match. I'm right with seasonal. Seasonal? Seasonal does need some Riddle. No, Riddle needs some seasoning. But the kid's got talent. He definitely needs to stay in NXT for a bit. He's not someone that would have been going up to main roster if we're still doing that. Instead, people seem to be coming back down. But he's got really good, and with a bit of maturing in NXT, he'll be one of the top guys in a few years, depending on who comes down. Balor had to get the win. It was obvious because he needs to punctuate his return and go, I am here, I am the top man. And I think he's going up against Ciampa. Maybe he went up against Ciampa this week. I know Chris mentioned something like about it to me. I haven't managed to watch NXT this week. It's now Thursday. I'm just meant to be going out tomorrow. The question is, of course, where does Balor go next? If he's fighting Ciampa, does he go straight for the title? Who's the one that fights for the big gold next? I don't know. I'll talk about that. I might talk about that when I talk about the NXT title match. But Finn Balor have a win here. The obvious win. There's not really much more to say about that one. And the last part for this is the men's WarGames match. The Undisputed Era versus Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, Dijakovic, and the surprise man, Kevin Owens. Just sort of wow was my first reaction after watching this. So Kevin Owens comes out, he's the TVA, which got a great reaction. I was happy for it. I wasn't watching NXT when it was Kevin Owens' first spell there, so I probably haven't quite got that same emotional reaction. I had a much bigger reaction for Finn Balor coming back on TV, but I know people that did watch it back then, and people have said, when Finn Balor came back, the main thought was, well, why isn't it Kevin Owens? Because he was bigger, and maybe it suits him more. Balor has been terribly misused on the main roster. He had that one night Universal title run before he got injured, and he never was given any sort of trust again after that. He never managed to get. I think he had the Intercontinental title for a while, but he wasn't trusted. They didn't give him a long run or a decent run or a strong run. Whereas Owens at least had that long run with the world title. I know he had Chris Jericho to back him up, and it was in a time when everyone was injured, but he still got that big run, and he was still a big name, even though a lot of his feuds were pretty badly written. But he still was a fixture, so I don't know. It's who's worse off? It's the Three Northerners sketch, isn't it? I hadn't picked up on this, but Gargano being injured threw this match off. So it's supposed to be Balor versus Gargano, and then with Gargano being injured, they had to pick someone up. So Riddle was the man. Balor came out and insulted him for a bit, and he came out to defend his own honor. So that's why we got the to be announced, and then Kevin Owens coming down. So I thought Gargano was just staying off TV for a bit to heal up or whatever, but no, he's genuinely injured. So it seems there's no timetable for his return, but it doesn't seem serious, so it's not a big worry, I guess. Talk about the match. It was quite a spot fest, but you're always going to get that with a WarGames match. There's with the two rings and the cage around you and all that, there's too much there for you to have a good classic wrestling match. And to be perfectly honest, the people in the stadium aren't really going to see it properly with the cage match. So you've got to have this sort of big, grandiose spot fest where it's all a bit. But that doesn't mean you can't work it well and use proper wrestling psychology, which I felt they did. So, this is a great match, and this was the right closer. There was a point after the women's match, after that finish, we thought, should this feels like it really should have ended the show. Why have they gone? Is this just more made a bit of a women from WWE, or is there going to be? And then with that finish, with Ciampa dropping Adam Cole through the two tables from the side of the cage, 1, 2, 3. There's no way anything could have followed that. You simply can't. So that's your choice. There you go. The women's match was brilliant, had a brilliant ending, but you can't follow an ending like that. So in the end, they did make the right decision. There you go. Right, I have sped through that. I'm getting through this. This is going to be quite a quick podcast, I believe. It's just me when I've got no Chris to bounce off. I get through it quicker, and I'm not rambling because I've got proper notes this time. Actually, proper notes. There's a few matches, mainly Survivor Series matches, that I didn't have any notes on last week. You couldn't tell, could you? Because I rambled a bit. Anyway, I will take another quick break, and then I'll be back to run down the slightly larger Survivor Series card.
You're listening to Life Junkies podcast.
Survivor Series. Now, there's a lot of people be talking about this show and saying, well, there's not really anything at stake. There's no issues. Maybe if you're fighting for a draft pick or this or that. But to be perfectly honest, I quite like the idea of just an exhibition where you have fun and just have a laugh and just watch a decent match. I don't think, and I'm the one that's always advocating for storylines to make sense for going into matches and blah blah. And my first Survivor Series was that big SmackDown versus Raw one with Batista, where they powerbombed him through a car, and he had the taping around his waist, and he was the leader of a SmackDown locker room, and it was brilliant. Honestly, I've gone back and watched that a few times, and I love that era and that the run up to that pay-per-view, and they carried on the SmackDown vs Raw theme for a while, and that was again logical because it spanned over a few. It wasn't just right now we're fighting Survivor Series, okay, now we're done. It was, and it had aftermath, and it was that was when Batista and Rey Mysterio were teaming up because he was attacked by it was the Kane and Big Show. I can't remember what the name of the stable was, but yeah, it made sense. It was great. Whereas when they've done it since then, it's like, oh, let's just fight for a bit. Okay, now we'll stop. So that's. But if you treat it as an exhibition, as a bit of fun, then I think I was looking forward to this, which is odd for me because I don't tend to look forward to the main card stuff. It had a lot to live up to. WarGames was fantastic, and I don't think it quite hit the WarGames high, but you're not going to get that from the main roster because they're achieving a different thing. And to be perfectly honest, it's not. The wrestling fans like me and you, the guys that watch NXT, we're not their main market. We are part of their market, but we're not what they're aiming for. It's always going to be the kids, and they've got to make something that appeals to both. And that's the difficulty we have doing that, and also pleasing an old billionaire. So anyway, we start, of course, as always, with the pre-show, the Tag Team Battle Royal, won by Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler. This was pointless. I have nothing more to say. Cruiserweight title, Kalisto versus Tozawa versus Lio Rush, the champion, also on the pre-show. Just a point, I don't think we've mentioned it on the podcast, but the Cruiserweight title is now the NXT Cruiserweight title. So there's been a lot of talk since then that 205 Live could be no more. I think there's 2 weeks that they haven't recorded one and just put an old one up in its place in the slot. I don't think that's a particularly bad thing. 205 Live's great, the matches on it are great, but you don't really, and it's hard to have proper storylines on it, and there's only one belt, so to merge it into NXT, especially now NXT is a bit longer, makes sense to me. That's the way I would go. No build up to this match at all. Not on NXT, not on anything. It might have been on 205 Live, but I don't watch 205 Live because no one watches 205 Live. This was typified by commentary, who spent the whole time talking about the Angel Garcia versus Lio Rush feud, and how that's affecting him, and he's got Garcia to deal with, and which completely buries the match. By the way, if you're not there talking about the match, then nobody watching is going to care about the match, and it's pretty obvious that there's really no chance of Rush losing the title here. So it's an easy win. So that was Roode and Ziggler of SmackDown. rushes NXT. And then the final match in the pre-show was, of course, the tag team freeway, the tag team champion freeway, I guess is the best way to say it. Which, of course, is because WWE don't care about their tag teams, even though they have some brilliant tag teams in there. Nah, we don't care. Cool. But this was won by the Viking Raiders. It was the Viking Raiders versus the New Day versus Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish of the Undisputed Era. Chris's favourites win, so he will be very, very happy. We both went for the New Day, which obviously Chris doesn't trust the Viking Raiders to get the win, but they did. So Chris, you should trust in your boys a bit more. The finisher is called the Viking Experience, funnily enough, which is their old tag team name. So cool. For a pre-show match, it was all right. All the brands going to the show level, which again is the point that the pre-show is pointless. That way they can sort of add the tag team match in, which they didn't last year, and everyone caught on to, and have it still not mean anything. So way to go! They are working everyone. I wanted to have a quick chat about titles here because this is, I know in the preview I brought up titles and had a moan about titles in the talking about the Bray Wyatt match because he has changed the colour of his title. Funnily enough, the Fiend, while being an evil undead-esque monster, he still respects the brand he's on because why not? Why, whatever. But here we have the example, and I don't want, so because there's not a massive amount to talk about in this match, I may as well talk about it here. Here we have the example of Viking Raiders of World Tag Team Champions, a New Day of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the exact same belt but blue and red. And Chris defended them somewhat. He said, "Oh, what are they supposed to do?" So here's my answer. And so when I was but a young man and I watched WWE, it was still just WWE. You had your one world title, you had your one tag team title. So for tag team titles, you had your European title, your hardcore title, and your Intercontinental title. Cool. That's back in the days when all I could watch was WWE Experience at 10 a.m. on Sky for an hour. So I never actually got to watch a Raw or a SmackDown at that point, and definitely I was nowhere near a pay-per-view at that age. But when I got back into wrestling when I was 14-ish, I came in right in the middle of the brand split, and you had the WWE title, which at that time was held by John Cena as spinner belt, which everyone's hated, which I don't think it's quite as ugly as everybody else thought, but cool, whatever. But on the other brand, you had the big gold belt, the World Heavyweight Championship, previously the WCW Heavyweight Championship, which is the single most beautiful title belt ever in existence. Don't at me. You can't. There is nothing is nicer than the big gold belt. It's a beautiful belt. The big gold belt, I think you call it the beautiful belt. The beautiful belt was not a copy of the WWE title. It was a world title of its own right. It came in with its own prestige, with its own history, and I know they cut the history off when Triple H gave it to himself from Raw. That's cool. If you don't want to acknowledge your competition, you've brought them, you don't have to. But the fans knew that belt meant something, and it meant far more than what the list on WWE.com said. Yes, I'm the man that went through WWE.com and researched the history of belts because I'm that sad. There's a reason why I'm a history student right now. But the point of that was it was a belt in its own right. That gave it a certain power to itself. It had that feeling about it. When you look at the Universal title, which is just red or blue, depending on what brand it's on, it is a fake copy of the proper WWE title. That's it. That's all it is now. So it doesn't have that. And fans chanted bullshit at the event that it was brought out on, and it sort of overshadowed the title match, which was a very good title match at that pay-per-view. And I don't think that's necessarily on because you're punishing the wrestlers for something that isn't their fault. Seth Rollins and Finn Balor didn't choose that belt design. They didn't go for that. They might have sat there and gone, that's horrible, just like everyone else did. But it's this sort of this laziness of, well, we can't bother to think of a new belt design. And they can. You look at the Intercontinental title belt, which they've just replaced. That is a beautiful belt. Even, you know what? Even the copper tag team belts are not a bad looking belt, but put it on a black belt and have that as a singular belt. And again, the time I'm talking about, we had the WWE tag team titles and we had the World tag team titles. Two completely distinct belts that had their own lineage, their own, and you could tell them apart. I don't know. I don't know who the SmackDown champions are and who the Raw champions are. I genuinely don't know. There's no, and they come out and it's just a different colour belt and it's not. But they meld into one because they've got nothing to signify that they are different to the other belt. They're the same belt, but just, and the same with the women's. If you want, it makes both belts look worse because they don't have their own distinct look. And this is a business that is built around title belts. That's the whole point. Without the title belts, I think I said this in the preview, without the title belts, this is all pointless. We are just people, we are just people watching people fight for pieces of leather. So when you have these title belts that look exactly the same with a just cookie cutter but with a different colour to them, you're exposing everything. You're exposing the ridiculousness of it. You don't have to bring back the big gold belt. I would love it if you brought. You know what? If you brought the big gold belt, if the Fiend had pulled out the big gold belt when he revealed the brand new Universal title, I would watch SmackDown every week. Boom, that's it, done. I will watch for that belt. Fine. Because it makes me happy. And while I wasn't around for its original run, I loved that belt from its WWE run. But first of all, the ridiculousness of a character like The Fiend or Bray Wyatt just to change the belt colour because it's on a different brand is just there's no logic, there's no storyline logic there. But it means less. Even if he pulled out a completely different but new belt, I would have gone, all right, that's cool. I'm happy with that. We can move on. But it will always be a fake copy, especially the Universal title belt more than the Women's Championships, more than the Tag Team Championships, because it is pretty much a copy of the WWE title. Just the WWE title is a proper title, whereas this is just a coloured version of that title. Which means it gives off a mystique that the Universal title isn't a world title, and no matter how many times you give it to Brock Lesnar or Seth Rollins, or another, I don't think any other really big wrestlers had it, but no matter how many times you do that, no matter how you give it to, if you bring the Undertaker back and Stone Cold so they can fight over it, that will still be, in my eyes, a secondary title. The main world title in WWE is the WWE title. You can call it the Universal title if you want. Ain't a proper world title. I'm sorry, but it's not. And for me, the NXT title means more than that abomination of a Universal title. And that's fine. I've spent far too long moaning about titles. I am at my best when I get on a rant, I'm sure of it. I hope I am anyway, because there's a lot of rants. But now we get to the show proper. The Women's Survivor Series match. Team Raw, Charlotte Flair, Natalya, Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Logan versus Team SmackDown, Sasha Banks, Carmella, Brooke, I've forgot her name in the preview and I've forgotten her name now. Dana Brooke, got it. Lacey Evans and Nikki Cross versus the announced the night before women's team of Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai, Candice LeRae, Toni Storm, and Bianca Belair. Now, I'm sure this was mentioned on, was it SmackDown, that Toni Storm came out with some of the women, and there was a picture of the five of them together going, well, this is the NXT team for Survivor Series. So I wasn't surprised when Storm came out. And I know I said in the preview I expected her to be on it, and I'm sure she was on SmackDown. So they sort of gave it away a bit beforehand. I'm going to say it again because it's a point so good. I'm making it twice. Rhea Ripley is so good. So good. So match is sort of general Survivor Series fare until Asuka turns on Charlotte Flair with the green mist in the eyes, and she's blinded and pinned by Lacey Evans. Which I don't know why. I know you can't see, but as a wrestler, you normally sort of try and fight. It's not going to be all one hit and you're down, is it? Like they could have at least had her do a finishing move on her, although a punch is a finishing move, isn't it? It's the women's right. It just looked naff to me. But we fight down, whittle women away, doon. We've had, was it Io Shirai and Candice LeRae are helped off with apparent head injuries, but they're not stretched out. They're just on the arm of a referee, which like in the course of a match, the wrestler is in a far worse condition. So if you want, I don't know. But we don't know how they're trying to book this and what the logic is behind it, but fine. But we are now down to, in the end, we get down to just Natalya from Team Raw, Sasha Banks from Team SmackDown, and Rhea Ripley from Team NXT. Banks and Natalya decide they're going to team up against Ripley, with Ripley being the interloper. And then Sasha goes, Natalya, why don't you go first? Which is like, that's, you know that you're about to be attacked in the back when they do that. That's how it always works. But Natalya, who wins Most Gullible Superstar Slammy, goes to attack Ripley, and then Sasha turns on her and pins her. So then it's just Sasha and Ripley. And they got it for a bit until the two women that had gone off injured earlier, air quotes, come back down and get involved to help Ripley get the win. So, boom. Team NXT win. That is the first match in which me and Chris have gone for different people, and I get the win there. Unlucky Chris. See, he thought by copying a load of my picks he could try and sneak a win with a few different ones, but he forgets that I know all. Which I'm about to prove myself wrong in the next match, but cool. It's a clever idea to get two of the women that were in the longest in the women's WarGames match to give them a bit of a break, because again, it's especially a WarGames match, it's heavy going. So why don't with the NXT women's division being the best in the world, I think that is best in the world. Yeah, I'm gonna stand by that. Best in the world. Then but it's right that they get the win here. Brilliant. That makes it 2-1, 2-1-1 NXT win the lead. We then go to the secondary title triple threat. AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura versus Roderick Strong. This is another very good match. Even Nakamura showed up, which, you know, I feel like the last time I sat down and praised him in this podcast, it was after a triple threat match as well. So I might be wrong there, but maybe if it is triple threat matches that's getting the best out of him, maybe it's because he can rest during the match and let the other two men brawl for a bit, which means he can push himself a bit more. Or maybe he just cared today. It's one of those, you don't know, is it? And it comes back to the Shinsuke Nakamura question. Is his struggles in WWE because he's worn out? Or is it because he's just there for a paycheck? Probably a little bit of both columns, but, you know. The end comes when AJ Styles hits Nakamura with a phenomenal forearm. Roddy comes in, disposes of AJ, and gets the pin 1-2-3 on Shinsuke Nakamura. I wouldn't have put Roddy over, personally. It makes sense when you look at how they booked the show overall. But I would have had AJ win here, mainly because I don't think. No, okay, this is going to sound quite harsh, and I like Roderick Strong. I think he's really good. I don't think he's good enough to warrant a win over AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Not in this ground, but I get why they did it and what they're trying to do. So both me and Chris went for AJ Styles, which of course was the logical pick. So we're both wrong. Maybe I'm just sore that my prediction was wrong. I don't know. But next we get to the men's NXT title. This was the best match of the night. You know what? This was quite possibly the best match of a weekend. I might even put this over the men's Survivor Series WarGames, not the men's Survivor Series WarGames, the men's WarGames match. Honestly, this was brilliant, and it's a testament to just how good this match was. That the crowd were a bit dead at the start. Maybe there's a few more of the casual fans there that they didn't really understand who Pete Dunne was. But wow, by the end of it, they were hanging on the entire match. It was so good. That ending. So I'm gonna describe the whole ending to you because cool. So they do the Panama Sunrise, which is he jumps off the rope and does a Canadian destroyer basically, which I'm still amazed they allow. You can't do a power driver, but you can do this flippy pile driver, which looks far more dangerous. It might not be, and because he did this in was it a cage match with Gargano? He did it in that. They both did one in that, I think. But I mention this again, but it looks so much more dangerous. And again, I've never heard of anyone being injured by a Panama Sunrise, but I think it's also maybe it's not fairly rare, but it depends. I don't know. What do I know? I've never even trained to wrestle. I just watch it on the app now, on the network. So anyway, Panama Sunrise on the ring apron. And then they both slowly get in, and then while Dunne is on his knees getting up, Adam Cole hits him with a kick in the head, which causes Dunne to spit out his mouthguard, which goes and lands underneath the ropes. Cole goes for the pin, Dunne kicks out, but he sits there and he looks defeated and desperate. And then he sees his mouthguard, which I can only assume for him is sort of a safety blanket type thing where he needs it to feel that's him looking for that last vestiges of confidence, of that belief that he can win, but he needs to get that mouthguard to make himself feel like he can. He's stopped by Adam Cole, who stands on his hand as it's just grabbed the mouthguard, and then Dunne sees that as his chance as he gets hold of a hand and does the handbrake. He then pops up to try and do his finish on him. I can't remember the name of it right now, which Adam Cole reverses mid-move into another sort of Panama Sunrise. He gets the flip, and it just looked. I still don't really know how he worked it, but he did, and it looked brilliant. He then gets the last shot in, and gets the pin for 1, 2, 3. That had everything, and you can tell. And this is why I think Pete Dunne's so good, because it's that psychology. That's he knows, and whether you are down with the finger breaking and that side of it, and the very technical bruiser style of Pete Dunne, which I know especially Chris, the sometimes co-host on here, isn't, but you cannot deny. Chris has already denied. We've already talked about this, but you cannot deny that was perfect ending, and that he gets the very basic, the very things that make wrestling. He gets it. He does, and Adam Cole is another. But I would happily watch these guys have a series of matches. I would more than happily. We both went for Adam Cole because we just don't think it's quite. I think he's getting there. It's about he's going to lose it soon. I don't think he's quite ready to lose it. They'll let him carry it for a bit. I think maybe next Takeover. Boom, pin. From someone, maybe Ciampa, maybe Balor. Maybe not Balor because that would be heel versus heel. Ciampa. Ciampa, who is ridiculously over. Ciampa, who is more over than nearly anyone else on this card. But next we're going to the secondary title, the Universal title match. Daniel Bryan challenging The Fiend. This definitely was a more interesting feud with Rollins. The Miz works being included. I thought he was a face, but he seems to be sort of a heel-ish character now. We don't have. We had that bit, that little segment where Bryan is getting ready and the Miz comes in, and I don't remember it being a bit from him where he's talking about, I was in the ring with him. I felt that feeling of pure evil. I know you felt it too. This is about more than just wrestling. This is about our livelihoods and ourselves and rah, rah, rah. And then Bryan just tells him to get out. So I don't think that was a bit. So I don't know what the planning there. I presume they're going to carry on the feud. We don't really know why Bray attacked Bryan and started it. Fine. This is a fairly basic match, but I quite enjoyed it. It's quite hard to book a match of a Fiend versus anyone. I think you saw the issues of them trying to get that. The issues are what caused the Hell in a Cell match, because they don't really know. You can't book him like you would a normal wrestler. And I think that's the issue. This is why I felt that he shouldn't have had the title yet, because it can be really hard to book him, because he's still new. He still needs to be really strong. But because he's got a title, you have to book him against top guys that you can't punk out. So you've got to try and make them look strong, but make him look scary and unbeatable. So it's a really hard balance again. I think they did all right here, but that's why you go for Daniel Bryan, because if anyone's going to be able to work a match like this, Bryan will, because he's just so intelligent when it comes to wrestling. The Fiend gets the win, which he has to. Both me and Chris went for him. Boom. Done. Next we have the men's Survivor Series match. So Team Raw, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton and Ricochet versus Team SmackDown, Roman Reigns, Ali, Braun Strowman, Baron Corbin and Shorty G versus Team NXT, Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, Walter Riddle? That's not Walter, Matt Riddle, Damian Priest. Walter was the first pinned. I don't get that. He's the freshest guy on Team NXT, and he's really, really, really good. And the crowd there knew it. They chant a bull word. I won't repeat it. I'm trying not to. Yeah, you know. But it made no sense to me. If you want someone from NXT out early, Priest is a perfect one there. I would have said Keith Lee, because there's been questions about his conditioning, but I get now with him being the one they wanted to push in this match, I could see why he wasn't an option. Ciampa's definitely not an option. Riddle maybe, but I would have put Priest out early, because he doesn't need it. He's for someone like him, that rub there is just enough. This is the United Kingdom Championship. In putting him out early, you buried him. You've also buried NXT UK and the United Kingdom Championship. We get a quick tease of Kevin Owens and NXT story, and then they completely waste it by eliminating. Boom. So they can turn it into a Seth Rollins heel turn the next night. Whatever. What a waste. They had that, and what I'm talking about the segment is they had one of the guys from SmackDown down, and one of the guys from Raw down. I presume it was Ali, and Owens was like, who do I frog splash? They're both legal, and he chooses a SmackDown guy. And you think, are we going to get some form of turn, or are we going to get him refused to attack someone, or blah blah blah? And then, oh no, pretty much a few minutes later he's out. Cool. Quick elimination, which you get in these matches, which is the big issue. Felt a bit more throwaway in this one than in the women's match, but I don't know, maybe that's just because we're now getting jaded in the night. Then we have more infighting. Now, Baron Corbin is the most consistently booked character in all of WWE. His gimmick is that he's an idiot, and that's what he does time and time again. He's that bloke that argues with you just for the sake of arguing. Me, by the way. His character is not wavered. And it's a character. It is a character. How irritating it is for us to watch him, he is a character. So, but there's issues between him and Roman Reigns, which of course they were leading up to this, because he's been doing the awful big dog skits, which were as bad as the Nakamura ones that he did. You know, was it roughly a year ago? Maybe a bit longer, I don't know. But it was bad. Really bad. Was it? No, it wasn't him, was it? No, I'm getting my irritating wrestlers mixed up. It was Jinder Mahal that did the slightly racist Shinsuke Nakamura stuff. But then they brawl, and Corbin ends up getting taken out. I can't remember exactly how he got taken out. With SmackDown, it's obvious that Ciampa is a big deal, because the crowd are all for him. You're getting Daddy's Home chants and Let's Go Daddy and boom, 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 boom. But Lee was obviously the one they wanted to give a spot to. He was the one, and he was the last one in against Roman Reigns. And they went for it back and forth before Reigns gets the win. And then they did the fist bump spot with Reigns and Keith Lee. So, boom, he's the one they wanted to give a rub to. And Roman Reigns gets the win, of course. It was alright. It was a Survivor Series match. It was never going to be much more than that. I feel, for the potential cluster these could have been, both the men's and the women's, I think they went very smoothly. It was obviously quite precise and to the point, but I think they went well. Then we have the WWE title match, Rey Mysterio versus Brock Lesnar. I should point out that on that one, I correctly predicted Team SmackDown winning. Chris went for Team NXT, so it's me 2 up on Chris. Just putting that. Not that it matters. It doesn't matter, but I won. Well, I'm winning. But onto the WWE title match, Rey Mysterio versus Brock Lesnar. And as we've both gone for same for the last 2 matches, I've won. So whatever. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Honestly, it's not like I'm going to message Chris or lord it over Chris that I won this prediction and I win all the predictions. It doesn't matter. It genuinely does not matter to me. But I won. So, WWE title match, Rey Mysterio versus Brock Lesnar. They worked me on this one. They really, really got me. Of course, both me and Chris came in predicting Brock Lesnar because we thought there's no way we're going to let Rey Mysterio beat Brock Lesnar, is there? Is there? And then you get that point. Dominic comes in with the white towel. I don't know whether he's meant to be calling it off or whatever, but it was a distraction and Ray got a little bit back and then Brock starts him again. And at this point, I'm still like, well, yeah, Brock's going to win. It's just going to be maybe Dominic's going to get whooped. And then Dominic comes in with a chair and he starts going boom, 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 boom on him. He's not Kofi Kingston, of course, but he's Dominic. And he get a few chair shots in on the back. And then Brock gets positioned for 619. They do a double 619, which I marked out in. And kind of point out, for this, I was watching this Monday during the day. We were with my daughter who was having an infusion in the hospital. It was just like a 6 hour. We were there for a good, from sort of getting there to we were there for quite a long, a few hours. I was in the hospital. We've got the curtains around us because I'm not looking at other people while I'm anywhere. But I marked out in the hospital for that father-son 619, and then they go up on the and Dominic hits the splash, and I'm sat there going, he's gonna win. They're gonna let Ray beat Brock. Oh my god! And then Brock kicks out and pops up, and boom, F5, and he's down, done. Apart from that really really nice moment, it was a fairly standard Brock versus Little Man match. He's always seemed to be the ones he works the best with. I don't know why. Maybe it's, again, the thing is the guys he's going up against, which are Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, and Rey Mysterio, are some of the best guys in the business. So maybe it's who he's working with. I don't know. But that quick ending makes Brock look deadly, and that even when he's injured, he can just boop and down, and you're done. That is really good booking for someone that still isn't around that much. Anyway, we then get to the final match of the evening, the women closing out with the women's champion triple threat, Becky Lynch versus Bayley versus Shayna Baszler. The final slot in these pay-per-views is now the death slot. The crowd were done. Even I was fatigued watching this, and I wasn't even there in the crowd. I was sat in a chair. I had coffee and KFC to keep me happy. Maybe it was hurt by that Rey Mysterio high and the quick Brock win. I don't know. But it was done. Now the first thing you see is Emo Bayley walking out with her little, I don't know where she was meant to look like a sort of like, I can't think of a word, like some sort of yogi with her chakra crystal. Is it chakra crystal? I'm not a crystal person. But she comes down with a little headpiece on and killing the conspiracy about her title, which is that it spells AEW and they wouldn't let her wear it around her waist so it doesn't spell AEW. Maybe she wore it out because of that conspiracy theory. Maybe it was a big 2 fingers up. This match really struggles to live up to the rest of the pay-per-view. I felt it just didn't quite click, although I really did like Baszler, especially when she got Bayley. There's 2 times when she really, the time when Bayley's running along, I think she's going to run and jump off on Becky Lynch, so she's running along the apron and Baszler just appears and grabs her in a chin lock. Becky sells that brilliant. And then the final where she gets her in the, is it Kimura clutch? I might be getting my wrestling holds completely mixed up. But she gets her in the submission move, and again Bayley sells brilliantly. Her selling is brilliant, and it does look like Bayley's about to take her head off completely. It's really good, and that is where she finally gets the tap. And they did the thing; they did it properly. She fought to get out of it for a while. She didn't just give in and go, "Oh, this is the finishing move. I'll tap now." She fought and she sold, and it's one of those little deals that really irritates me, because it means that any time they get in a submission, you go, "Oh, she's going to get out because she would have tapped by now." But no, when you stay and you fight for that final one, it makes it actually look real. And then you get the Becky Lynch beatdown at the end, which is consistent with her character and keeps her hot. I don't really know what the point is, because I don't think you're going to get any more Shayna Baszler versus Becky Lynch stuff going forward. But apart from keeping her heat on her. But me and Chris both went for Shayna Baszler, and Shayna Baszler gets the win, which in the end it ended up for NXT 4, SmackDown 2, Raw 2, which is big, but it makes sense, because the point of this pay-per-view again was to show just how strong NXT are, and to promote NXT for people so they can beat AEW in the Wars. So it did its job there perfectly. Right, I know you're sad, but it's time for the outro. We actually went a lot longer than I expected us to, especially after the NXT part. I thought it was going to be quite a quick one, but we got quite a bit of talking done. So you can find me personally, Brazier25. That's on both Twitter and Instagram. You can find the Life Junkies on Twitter, _Life Junkies. You can also find the Life Junkies on Facebook, the Life Junkies 25. You can find, I have a Football Manager Twitter account, which will be the idea that it will be run as the manager of whoever I'm managing, whichever manager I'm playing as in the game. So at the moment it is Frank Lampard, but it will be changing when I change managers. That is Brazier FM. Chris also has a Football Manager account, which I will plug because I'm about to plug his stuff. Problem is I can't find it on my thing. Give me 2 seconds. He is. Has he deleted it? Black Crow. So at FM_Black Crow. There you go. I could have done that. I might edit that, but I'm not going to, because that would require effort. You can find all of our blogs, videos, podcasts, whatever on the lifejunkies25.wordpress.com. I would sit here and plug a thing to you, but nothing's gone up apart from sort of our old Football Manager content. But you will find that after this podcast should be going up at 10 a.m. on Friday. So if you're listening to it at 10 a.m. on Friday, you will find that we will have a new episode from Chris going up, the Black Crow Corporation episode 3 going out later today. He will also have a written post which will go out later tonight. If you're listening, of course, after Friday, then it's already gone up. There's also our new FM podcast feed. So if you're listening to this on an iTunes provider of choice, then go and search for Life Junkies FM. That is where you will get all of our Football Manager content. So Chris's audio stuff that he's doing now, my audio stuff I'm going to do later on in the year, and then we will try and put podcasts. Any Football Manager podcasts will be on both channels, but I will be re-releasing the one I did with Mr. Mike According and Tony FN Grasshopper. So I'll be re-releasing that probably today, probably later on today. Also, back episodes of this podcast available on YouTube. Of course, our SoundCloud provider can only put so much on, so stuff will be deleted. But so if it's your first time hearing this, you can go on YouTube and find our back catalogue. It's all in a playlist on there. Next week we will hopefully be talking FN20. If I can't find Chris, I will have a backup podcast if I can't. So come check us out. I also want one last plug for the Latte Quarterly, which it's been put together by some good friends of mine. It's a Football Manager sort of PDF-esque magazine type thing. Go check that out, search it out. It's got some really good and interesting articles they've written, which is a step away from their current saves. So in similar to the way that we both me and Chris started writing on here to give us a bit more freedom. They started that to give them some freedom to talk about things that aren't necessarily a save. So just for example, Mr. FM Adventure, Matt talks about what's in choosing a save. Mr. Samo, FM Samo, talks about his FM love and why he hides it under a bushel, whereas Mike, according to FM, friend of the podcast, talks about his diary of being a Football Manager daddy, while Tony, FM Grasshopper, does a fairly boring tactical post. Anyway, check it out and go give them some love, and come back next week when we talk about Football Manager, and goodbye.